Welcome to my tutorial for Ghosts and Goblins for the NES. And this one took me around 9 hours, 12 minutes to beat. The first loop took around 3 hours. So I found the game, pretty easy to go through the first time despite the really bad fucking controls. And, sometimes attacks go through the enemies. When you try to land on a platform, you'll go through it sometimes. It's a pretty shitty port. It's choppy. A lot of times the inputs don't respond, so there's a lot of issues with this port. I also beat the arcade original game, so I know how this game is supposed to play, and this definitely isn't it. It's a really shitty port, really bad for the NES. The NES could have done a lot better. I'm going to review this game as well. But, the main issues I had with the game were, from the difficulty were just, it was more of a frustrating game. I don't really consider it to be that difficult, execution-wise. But I've also beaten most of the games in this series. But I really don't consider the execution to be that difficult. But it's a matter of, doing the same shitty patterns again and again until I would break through, getting around the shitty gameplay and some of the random elements. It's about, 80% learnable, but there's about 20% of randomness to how the projectiles and things will act sometimes. So that little bit can throw you up, throw you off. And when you have to react quickly, it becomes difficult when the controls don't respond. So that's probably what cost me the most time. But yeah, the first loop, wasn't too bad for me, but you do have to go through, 2 loops to beat the game. So you do have to beat the game twice, as with most of the games in the series. The second loop is the one that took me about 6 hours. So it took me about twice as long, even after I was familiar with the first loop. So that extra projectile speed and extra little bit of difficulty on the second loop does add up, because the game just plays so shitty. So, it did extend my play time. I struggled the most on the 6th stage, which is the final actual stage on the second loop. That took me like 3 hours and 40-something minutes just to beat that one stage in the second loop. But I figured this would be a good one to cover, because it's definitely a hard game. It's just, compared to other shit that I've played and beaten, execution-wise, I think it's pretty mild. But I am accustomed to a lot of these kind of games, but I wasn't really that challenged by the actual execution. Once I, was able to map out the kind of the path that I wanted to take, you know what I mean? I got used to the pathing of the enemies and exactly where I was going to move when, and I'm pretty good at that kind of gameplay. So it wasn't hard for me to learn that and put that together. And I also had seen some videos of the game, too, before I even started it. So, stuff like that does help. But, aside from that, really, it's not real bad to execute if you're used to these kind of games. But it's just like you will probably be doing the same executions again and again for some hours before you break through. Because there's just a lot of little bullshit. There's a little, 20% randomness or so of things behaving a little bit differently. There is kind of like fixed spawn points where the floating burritos and things will appear, but they don't always spawn the same, and it can be a little bit different each time. So this is the first difficult stage, and I'm probably going to explain it better in the second loop. The good thing about showing both loops of the game is that I can go over some of the basics while this is playing out. Not that the first loop isn't difficult, but it gives me some time to cover some of the basic stuff about the game. And I'll go into more detail on the second loop, which is the harder loop anyway. But yeah, it's really just the little things in this game. The best weapon overall is usually the knife. But the game has a lot of bullshit where certain bosses will be immune to certain weapons. And they do stupid shit like, you see they put a shitty torch weapon right by the ladder here. Which means that if you want to proceed with the rest of the stage, you're going to have to grab that torch to go down the ladder. And you might as well just kill yourself, because then I had to farm for a while to get a better weapon. I grabbed the torch one time and I was stuck with it, and it was a lot worse than the knives or even the javelin. So what you have to do if you do accidentally get the wrong weapon, this is where you're going to farm. Keep killing these white flying demons in these windows. Just keep walking back and forth and killing all these flying demons. If you do it long enough, there's going to be ones that are carrying pots. And those are the ones that will drop different weapons. But the thing is, you're going to have to farm them for a while before you get the weapon you want again. You could be spending minutes doing that. Now, the game does have unlimited continues, and when you get a weapon and die with it, you have it until you accidentally pick something else that you don't want. Or maybe you do want it, but you do have the choice. But, you get locked in to whatever weapon you have until you pick up something different. So, if you do get the torch, you're going to be stuck with it until you get something else. Which the only area where you can get a different weapon really is the beginning of this checkpoint. That building with all the flying ghosts. So you're going to have to go back there and just, you're going to start there, but you're going to have to fuck around over there until you get one of them to drop the weapon you want. I edited that out of this, obviously. Since this is a tutorial, I edited out all the map screens, and because every time you start, every time you die, you have to watch this fucking shitty map cinematic with this fucking music every time. It's very fucking irritating. But and every time you beat a stage, you gotta watch it. It's very repetitive. So I edited all that out. There's no need for that in a tutorial. And I show the first death at every new checkpoint, basically, just to show how the checkpoints work. So there are deaths, I didn't edit out all the deaths. I show the first one in each new checkpoint. Most of the stages have a midpoint checkpoint in the middle of the stage. But, the last two stages have no checkpoints, but you do get to start at the beginning of the stage. So this part can be a pain in the ass if you don't jump on the platforms exactly the same way that you're supposed to do. You'll fall in the water very easily, because one of the shitty things about this game is that once you launch a jump, you're committed to the distance of the jump. You can pivot in the air to change your fire direction, but you can't actually change the distance of your jump. So you got to launch at the correct. You got to launch from the correct area, or you'll go too far and fall in the holes. So it's just something that you got to kind of get used to. That's why I always recommend with these games, use save states to practice sections, and then commit suicide or whatever, and go and play the game legit. But you can practice as much as you need to each section, and then just after you beat a section a few times, it's decent practice, so you can just suicide and go back to the checkpoint. That's what I do. I didn't play this game consistently, so I played it a little bit, maybe many months ago, when I had just saved. I'll use save states to resume where I left off, but not to cheat through the games. I use them for practice, quick resetting, things like that, but not to actually get any advantage that the game, would otherwise not give me. So this is the next very hard part, and I'm going to go over all this more in detail in the second loop. I just wanted to kind of cover some things in the beginning. It is a short game. So when you do continue, you will continue at the checkpoint even if you lost all your lives, so it doesn't matter about lives. Lives are pretty much useless unless you're doing a no-death run or a 1cc or whatever. So I don't cover any of that. I never worried about lives. But they do try to set you up for failure by making you hit select a few times to get down to the continue option. If you're in a rush and you're mashing the start button to get back into the game, you're not going to be able to do that after you lose all your lives. You're going to have to remember to hit select a few times. Otherwise, you're going to start the whole game over, even if you're in the second loop. So just be aware of that. Now, of course, I was using save state, so had I made that mistake, I would have just fucking reloaded the save. I'm not going to count that against myself for some stupid menu shit. But I don't think I ever actually fucked that up, so that was good. But I had saves anyway. I wasn't too worried about it. You can get an armor here. But again, I'm going to be covering all this more in depth in the second loop. So yeah, you do, like I said, you have unlimited continues. The difference between this US version, at least you have unlimited continues. In the Famicom version, crouch here for an armor, by the way. But yeah, in the Famicom version, or the Japanese version of this, you have no continues. So you will have to beat it on your few lives that you have, and then you're really going to want to get those 1-ups, because you're going to have to do both loops on one set of lives. That's pretty fucking brutal. Now, for this part, sometimes you'll get hit randomly by the dragon for no fucking reason. You just take a hit. It's a really glitchy game. But, I just start by throwing knives at the thing. I don't use the torch on the dragon, because I don't want the fucking torch. It might be better on the dragon, but I don't fucking care about it. I don't want it. So for me, I just keep my fucking knife. It may take more hits, but the thing that kills the dragon is hitting its head directly. So you can take out segments of his body so he can't hit you as easily. It reduces his hitbox, basically, so he can't run into you as easily because it makes him smaller. But, you know, you can see that shitty control where you just don't even jump properly in this game. It's really shitty. But, yeah, the dragon takes damage by hitting its head, but if you try to hit the dragon in the head with the lance, I believe it's immune to the lance. So if you have the lance, you can't even kill it. You'll kill the segments, but you won't be able to take out the head, I believe. Very bullshitty game. There's like bosses that are immune to certain weapons for no particular reason. Sometimes they will give you the weapon that the boss is immune to right before the boss, just to fuck you over. You know, it's a troll type of game, and it plays like shit. So I'm gonna fucking hammer this shit in the review. I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, now this part is this shitty, janky platforming with very choppy scrolling. But you have to get on certain platforms, and you're not going to see this done very cleanly in my first or second loop. I never memorized this part because it's so easy. It's just tedious. And, you know, I never learned it. I just would get through it and, you know, be done with it. That was it. So whatever happened, happened. And I didn't edit it down or anything. I didn't want to edit it down. But this was not too bad. You know, I got through here fairly quickly in this attempt. But in my second loop, you're going to see me fucking around on the platforms for a while. And I just left that in. So yeah, once you get to this bridge where the gargoyle is, you're good. You got the checkpoint. See, now I got the checkpoint. So I'm good to go. That's the thing with this game, man. Just run to the fucking checkpoints and fuck it, you know. Get the checkpoint. Because that's permanent progress. As long as you go back to your saves or keep continuing, you know, you got permanent progress. So it's one step in the right direction. You don't have to beat the whole stage in one life. Now these gargoyles, obviously, Aurimers, are the hardest enemies in the game. But, you know, strangely enough, they may not be the most annoying enemies in the game. To me, the most annoying fucking enemies in the game are the floating burrito type of enemies that throw spears. But we'll see that later. We'll see more of that later. They have appeared, but... So for the dragon, same thing. You're fighting the same boss again, and, you know, you probably want to keep the knives. I would keep them. You don't need them, but make sure you don't have the javelin or the lance or whatever it's called, because I think that won't take out his head, which means you can't kill him. So just make sure you have that. Now with the Aurimers, the red demons, all you got to do, they are difficult, but there is a way to fight them. It's just I can't say that those are the floating burritos. I can't say I'm consistent though with killing the Aurimers because there's a lot of like randomness with their movement. But the idea is to run away from them and jump away, and then as they swoop down, you pivot in the air and throw your weapons at them. And then you go back to the other side after they swoop down, and you rinse and repeat. So you're going to see me do that later more. I mean, there's going to be a whole nother loop, so you'll see. Now you can skip some of them, see, by going up the ladders. Don't engage them. Don't throw anything at them. Don't walk beyond the ladder, or you will most likely activate them. Then you got to fight them. They're not going to leave you the fuck alone until they're dead. So once they start engaging you, you're locked into a fight usually. You can despawn some of them, which I think we're going to see later. I think I did do it on my successful run a few times, but hard to remember because sometimes I wouldn't get to despawn. You know, most of the time I didn't get it. I wasn't really aiming to despawn them because I didn't know how to do it consistently. I did try to do it by moving them off screen a lot. So for these fat enemies, you know, you're just going to pelt them with about 10 hits. And just keep hitting them, because if you let up, they will shoot something at you or they'll run across the screen super fast and hit you. You do get an armor here. There's a little bit of a quicker path up this little tower that I think I show in my second loop. So I'm also going to show a trick to where you can kill both Satan bosses when you have to fight both of them at the same time. There's a way to kill both of them very quickly and potentially without damage, though I usually do get hit when I do it. But I'm going to show me doing it while taking a hit, and also I'm going to show it where I didn't get hit. So I'll show both runs. So now we're just fighting a single Satan, which is really easy in the first loop. He has slow projectiles. So all you got to do is duck when he comes down. He's still kind of tricky, but he gets harder in the second loop. You throw out a few projectiles and just duck. As long as you duck, he can't hit you when he swoops down. And that's pretty much it. Pretty simple. Not too bad. I'm going to show first how you can fight both Satans like the normal way by fighting them individually, so we'll see that. But then I'm going to show the trick method that you might want to try. Usually you have to take a fucking hit on this asshole. It's just set up like that to where he won't move back, and if you do have knives, you're going to have to get the shield anyway because you need the shield. You know, if you beat this stage without the shield, you're going to get sent back to stage 5. So make sure you have this shield weapon, which is dropped right when you're fighting the dragon. The shield weapon will drop down if you don't already have it. So make sure you do that. You can get an armor here by jumping in this corner. So you're going to want that. So you'll see enemies kind of just go away sometimes. It's really glitchy, but you only got to take out that skull. When you see the skull, make sure you duck and shoot it to get rid of it because it'll pop up. Now you'll see I got the glitch where the skeleton at the top popped up, and now it makes it extremely difficult to get up this fucking ladder without taking damage. So when that happens, you're just probably going to have to take a hit. If you want to lure out the gargoyle. I despawned him here. But you want to lure him out by going halfway up the ladder and then back down. About 3/4 up the ladder will spawn him, and then you go back down. But you got these goblins throwing shit at you. Now I'm going back down to get the armor, but I forgot that I had already gotten it. So, you know, obviously you can't get it twice. So you can save it, though. You can come back and get it later. But I had to use it early since I got hit. The good thing is, you know, unlike a lot of NES games, the enemies don't respawn when you kill them, at least. So, I mean, that's fucking good. That's like the only good thing about the game. So now we got the two Satans. It's the same boss, but, you know, 2 of them at the same time. So I would recommend fighting them. If you want to fight them the normal way, you can lure one out at a time and do the same pattern that we did on the first one. So with the shield weapon, which is what you need, you can also shoot their projectiles to erase their projectiles. So you can use that to get rid of their projectiles as well. So it does make it easier than just throwing knives at them, you know. The only issue with the shield is that it's a short-range weapon, so it doesn't go as far as the knives and all that, but it's doable. The first round, it's really not too bad to beat both of them. I found them harder on the second loop for whatever reason. I think they shot a lot more projectiles or some shit, you know. I think that's the main difference, is everything is more aggressive in the second loop. It's not that noticeable at first, but I did kind of have trouble on the first stage of the second loop, which was odd, because it's usually an easy stage. So this is the final boss. It's super easy, and you get a checkpoint right at the boss, so if you die, you'll start at the final boss. But the final boss is super easy, and then it tells you that you gotta beat the whole game again. And it's the exact same thing, except it's like faster and more difficult. So now we're in the second loop, but this is required. You know, to get the true ending, you have to beat the game twice. It will stop looping after you beat it twice. You'll get an ending message. A shitty ending message is all you really get. But, you know, if you want to beat the game legit, I would say you do have to complete it twice. It's just a waste of time, really. I would rather they just start the game with the second loop, just make the game a little harder. So you only have to do it once, you know, what's the point of doing it twice? If you want to make the game harder, just fucking start it off harder, but don't waste my fucking time. So now we got the knives, which is, you know, what I like to have most of the time. So that's the basic idea with the red demons. You know, you run away from them, and as they swoop down, you jump away and pivot in the air facing them and fire off your shots. Turbo control is good with this game. It's useful, but it's not going to make a difference as far as really making the game easier because it's easy enough to mash. You don't really get a faster fire rate with turbo in this game because you have a slow fire rate in this game. It's based on the amount of weapons that are on screen at once. You can only have so many instances of a weapon being fired on screen at a single time. So now we'll get into the strategies a little bit more. Nothing complex in this first stage. It's just denser than it was initially. But you do get the checkpoint at that midway point. I would recommend for this first stage, it gets a little wild with all these burritos and shit. I like to just keep firing and moving a little slower for this part. Because these burritos just keep popping out. But you will memorize their general spawn points after you die enough times. They are a big pain in the ass. They become a bigger problem later on where they just kind of pop up in the middle of the stages. A lot of times they'll spawn directly on your fucking ass, so I recommend not getting the other weapons that drop, especially the torch. You know, it can be very shitty because while it's burning, you can't fire another weapon. So first boss, very easy. Just kind of crouch at a distance and try to put as many knives in him as you can before he gets to you. You know, if you take a hit, not a big deal. So this is the first, after this section is the first difficulty spike of the game. And what I'm saying applies to pretty much both loops. So everything I'm saying is the strategies are very similar. It's just more can go wrong in the second loop because it's faster, you know. But it's pretty much all the strats are pretty damn identical. It's not different enough to where it really changes the basic strats that I used. So this is the first difficulty spike, and this is where a lot of players will quit the game and not go back to it. You know, this is a hard part. So I'm going to die here, so we'll see a proper run once I continue. Now, this took a while. This wasn't like I just continued and beat it right away. You know, I died on this a while in the second loop. I might have been working on this for a while. So, just kill some shit and go up the ladders. But what you want to do is kill these big men, as they're called, these big goblin guys. And kill these ones through the wall. Take your time because you want to clear out these guys on the other side because they're going to be a huge problem if you don't kill them now. Because when you're trying to go down the ladder, you're going to have to, like, it's going to be really bad because they're going to be, like, waiting by the ladders. So you got to take them out. I mean, you don't have to, but just, you know, take my advice on that. Just clear them out. Now, don't go up this ladder unless you really need armor, like I do here. I think you're going to see me get the armor. So I'm going to try to get up here and get the armor, I believe. So if you need it, there is an armor up here, which, you know, I did end up needing. So just jump around here, and you're going to drop the armor. So get that. Now go down at that ladder. Don't go down at the ladder that's a little farther to the right, because if you do that, you're going to spawn a torch. That's going to be right on the ladder you need to go down, meaning you're going to have to get the torch. The weapons do not disappear. You know, you have to pick them up if they're in the way. So don't do that. So now you don't have to see it. Initially, you'd have to fight all those big men on the ladders on the way down, and it would be miserable. Because what they do is they stand by the ladders. And we're going to see more of that later, but they will stand right on the ladders so that you are pretty much fucked. You have to wait for them to move in a perfect way before you can go down the ladder, and it's a huge pain in the ass. It makes it way harder than it needs to be. So now you got to get your jumps, you know, proper so you don't jump in the water. It's a little awkward. But you want to try to move at a steady pace because the timer can also easily run out in this stage. So you just want to keep moving forward. But as long as you're using this strat, general strat, it's not too bad. You'll get it eventually. So first, we're going to duck and take out this first boss. There's two of them now. It'll jump over you the first time, so hopefully it doesn't hit you. If it does, you're just fucked. I mean, I don't really know what you can do in this game when things decide to, like, run into you. Like I said, it's a very cheap fucking game. That's why I say it feels a little bit like a dice roll, even when you have a path mapped out. You know, it does feel like a dice roll if you're going to get killed or not. I mean, I'm sure there's more consistent ways to do shit, but it's very difficult to get it to behave the same way. So this part's pretty easy. I like the upper path. But the next section is quite difficult. One of the hardest parts of the game on either loop. You may want to jump the projectiles and get a few shots in. But nothing difficult. So you can despawn some of these demons and do some shit like that. But we're going to first fight it. I'm probably going to die here. Doesn't take long. So here's a successful attempt. So trigger it with the knives, and see, you can despawn it if you're near the edge of the screen. So we despawn the first one. Because if it goes too far to the left, it will despawn itself sometimes. It goes off screen. So it's an easy way to get rid of it. Doesn't always work, but it does have the possibility of working. If not, you just fight them, normally. So for this one, we're going to trigger it and then jump off to the left and fire in the opposite direction. And then do the same thing again. You're probably going to get hit, but we're going to get an armor in a second. So now kill this burrito, and now jump up quickly. Don't stop here. Just keep jumping up these steps and go up this ladder. It skips some bullshit. So what you're going to do is now jump in this corner and spawn these 2 flying things. Kill them. Now jump off to the left, and now we'll get an armor by doing that. So it's not too bad if you do that. Trigger this red demon. And see, this one despawned too, so that made it a lot easier. Sometimes they will if you go off screen. So I got lucky with 2 despawns. But if not, you just fight them normally, and you may not have your armor. But there's another armor here. If you crouch there, you'll get the armor. You saw how I crouched in that corner. I'm not going to get it because I already have armor, but I just showed what you would do if you. I think I showed it in the first loop anyway, so you can see the armor there. So same thing now. At this point, it's the same shit. Try to throw some knives at the dragon. Sometimes you randomly get hit by a glitch, and there's nothing you can say like that. I mean, there's nothing you can do about that. I don't know how to prevent that. I mean, if there's a way to prevent it, it's not logical, because I've seen speedrunners concerned about getting hit by that too, so I don't know if there's a consistent way to guarantee that it's not going to hit you randomly. But, it's a shitty game, so that's what you get. So this is the platforming. This time it took me a really long time, so this is not going to be smooth. But, I mean, this part is really easy. It's just, fucking just some lame shit. You basically have to know which platforms to go on, and when, but I never learned it. So every time I got there, I was kind of just improvising. They try to make it confusing by making the platforms go all different distances and do weird shit. So it's meant to be confusing, I assume. It's just annoying. And the jumping in this game is shit, so you pretty much have to be running forward to jump in a direction. You can't, a lot of times you'll jump straight up, because if you accidentally hit a diagonal while you're walking, your character completely stops in place and it fucks everything up. It's very anal. But yeah, nothing hard here. I mean, there's not a lot of risk here, but it's just a pain in the ass. I never really found this game, like I said, to be that difficult, execution-wise, but very fucking frustrating, just because the game doesn't react in a way that you would expect it to. Inputs get dropped, and it just doesn't do what you would expect the game to do. It doesn't follow your fucking commands, unless it wants to. So, I mean, that's the only reason I would say this game is difficult. But I do think it's overrated as far as being one of the hardest NES games. I don't see it as that. I mean, I've definitely beaten games, on the NES that I found to be a lot harder than this. Even Ninja Gaiden 3 with the limited continues. Metal Storm on Expert was ridiculous, but that's a checkpoint. The checkpoint game like this. So that's comparable, and that game was fucking ridiculous, much, much harder. Ghost and Goblins Resurrection, the new one, on Legend. Legend mode, Legend difficulty is way fucking hard. It makes this game look like a fucking joke. I was working on that. I got to get back to that. But that shit is really fucking frustrating. Very long checkpoints. That game has some shitty aspects to it as well, but, nothing like this. But it's not super refined. But it's pretty good overall, but there's definitely some issues with it that I have. But for some reason I wanted to kind of, torture myself and try to play through it on the hardest mode. So nothing to say here. You just fight your standard red demon, and then you're fighting a dragon again. So you probably want to have the knives. But I mean, the torches, I guess they apparently work well on the dragon, but I just don't like the fucking torch, so I never use it. And then, of course, once you get the torch, you have to try to farm the pots again to get a better weapon. So it's just a waste of time to me. Because, I mean, even if I used it on the dragon is easy, so, it's just a waste. So I like to go up these ladders quickly. I don't spend a lot of time fucking around. I try to kill certain things, but I follow a very specific path that I would always try to follow, basically. And so once you map it out, don't get the axe. I think the axe doesn't even work on the boss of the stage. I think it's like a troll attempt. So you might want to kill this one on the left and then go up this ladder. There's a few different paths you can take here. I ended up going with this left path. I have to see if this is the path I ended up taking ultimately, though, because this could have been my first death on the stage, too. So we'll see. It looks like I might be good to beat this stage because there's only one boss I got to worry about. But yeah, just move quick and kill the specific enemies that I kill. Ignore the ones that I ignore. I mean, really not that complicated. This is really not that. It's a little tricky, but I didn't find this stage to be that difficult. The next one, though, is very hard. I spent like 3 hours and 40-something minutes on the next stage on this second loop alone, so I probably spent most of my time in this game on the 6th stage between both loops. Same thing here, but he did seem a little bit more aggressive to me, but it could just be me. Maybe I was playing bad. I was having a lot of trouble with the 2 Satans on the next stage. But this is the final boss. But I am going to show a fast way to do it for this second loop. It's not something I discovered. So sometimes you can push this asshole back, but it's really random. So here he hit me. Usually I just take the hit. I usually just accept that I'm going to get hit. I like to keep the shield. You don't have to, but it's more convenient for me to just keep the shield. Because I use the shield on everything else. I just can't use it on the... Well, you can use it on that first guy, but it's just like he never really cooperates. He'll usually run into me. So get the armor here if you need it. Sometimes I get here without getting hit, but most of the time I need the armor. I just accept that I'm probably going to get hit on that first guy. It's very cheap. So now there is a trick here. If you climb up this ladder and fire right, you don't have to worry about waking up the demon because your shields are too short range to reach the demon. So normally you would have to count your shots out. And if you fire the 11th shot, you'll wake the demon up because you'll kill the goblin and then your next knife will go through and hit the demon and wake it up. So that's how you avoid that. Stand right on the ladder and do it. You do have to lure the red armor by climbing about 3/4 up the ladder like I described on the first loop. You want to lure it and then go back down. Just follow what I'm doing. It's very specific. But you notice the goblins will hang out around the fucking ladders and try to make shit really miserable, and they'll shoot down at you. Now, if you get in here quickly you want to dodge 2 attacks. Dodge both demons' shuriken attack and one in there to the right, all the way to the end of the wall, to where there's maybe 1 column left of bricks. And turn around and face the other way and then just keep mashing the fire button. And if you do that, you can kill both of them, sometimes without taking damage. But it is riskier than it looks. It looks easier when you see it done properly, but I would fail it plenty of times. So even when I was in position, it still wouldn't always work for me. So it's not guaranteed, but if you really don't want to fight them normally, you can grind that method and you should break through eventually. And that's it. Then you fight the last boss. And now I'm going to show a version of fighting the 2 Satans without taking any damage. This was in my practice run. This didn't happen during my legit attempt, but I do save state practice, and this is where I learned how to pull this shit off. I saw it in a video first, but then I started practicing it. So I'll show that. We'll see that here. So yeah, dodge these 2 shurikens or remove them with your shield and then get in that corner and just turn around, when you get to that last column and keep firing. And if everything goes smoothly, you won't take damage, but I usually always get hit. And a lot of times I'd get hit twice and still die. So don't expect it to be some completely safe method, but it is something that if you do it enough times, you'll eventually win without putting a lot of effort into the fight. But, it may be faster to fight them normally if you fail that, many times. Because you got to redo the whole stage every time you fuck that up. So practice it with save states at least. And I will have a review up soon. If you have any questions, let me know. And thanks for watching.